Hello, my name is Isaac Olmos, and today I will be discussing the validity of eyewitness testimony. So, there are issues regarding the reliability of eyewitness testimony. Studies have shown that false eyewitness testimony has led to a handful of wrongful convictions. According to the Association for the Advancement of Science, 70% of cases that were later DNA exonerated since the 1990s had a false eyewitness testimony play a role in the wrongful conviction. And cited by the New York-based Innocence Project, 78% of the first 130 wrongful convictions also had false eyewitness testimony. However, juries still find eyewitness testimony to be fairly reliable in determining whether the defendant is guilty or not. So why is eyewitness testimony so unreliable at times? The first reason why it can be unreliable is because the human memory is not a recording of past events. Rather, it's an interpretation that can be susceptible to cultural norms and expectations. A study by Alport and Postma in 1947 showed both black and white participants this photo of a well-dressed black man being confronted by a poorly dressed white man with a razor. When asked to recollect what they saw in the picture, many white participants stated that the black man was the one who was holding the razor. This shows that the racial prejudice of the 20th century had an effect on what they recollected in the picture. Another study conducted by Frederick Bertlett showed participants of English background a Native American folktale and then asked to recollect the events of the story. Many of the participants later changed a few aspects of the story that did not fit with Native American culture rather than English culture, such as how a canoe turned into a boat and how hunting seals turned into fishing. The stimulus material historian, as a participant, also discusses how humans have the urge to try to rationalize events, leading to misrepresentation of the past. And in lineups, when there's a lineup with an investigator doing the lineup to the eyewitness, sometimes the investigator might give unintentional cues to who the primary suspect in the lineup is, and then the eyewitness is expected to choose the correct or the rational answer. Another reason why eyewitness testimony can be unreliable at times is because when there's a presence of a weapon in the crime, eyewitnesses tend to focus on the weapon and not on other aspects of the crime, such as the identity of the culprit. Elizabeth Loftus in 1987 showed participants of her study one of two slides. Both slides were of customers in a restaurant, although one slide had a customer holding a checkbook and the other slide had the same customer holding a gun. Those who were shown the slide with the gun had a more difficult time remembering aspects of the slide, including the facial features of the culprit. In the stimulus material attitudes towards Muslim women in the West, the interview discusses how Americans tend to disregard the economic and the political aspects that shaped Muslim communities, because they focus on the cultural icons and the cultural aspects, thus giving a misrepresentation of the community. Similarly, eyewitnesses focus on the weapon and give a misrepresentation of the crime. There are specific changes that could be done to protect the integrity of the court or the jury's decision. The first change that needs to be made is that eyewitness testimony should be backed by physical evidence instead of solely being the factor to determine if someone is guilty or not. The second change should be that lineup should be computerized. Instead of investigator and an eyewitness, it should be a computer doing the lineup. Although studies have shown that this could be very complex and also costly. However, many innocent people have been negatively affected or damaged by false eyewitness testimony, and compensation can also be costly, so I believe that this is a reasonable exchange. We're excited.
Alright. Alright, so let me ask you a couple of questions, Isaac. Okay. How did you select the strategies you used to gather your information and conduct your research? And were your strategies effective?
So, whenever I was looking at sites for evidence, I wanted to see if they included why the evidence they showed was reliable. Where did this evidence come from? I focused on psychologists because they're the ones who study the mind better. I had problems with that on the last few presentations where I couldn't explain why they were valid, that my evidence was valid.
Okay. All right. So, what advice would you have for other researchers who consider this topic?
For other researchers who consider this topic, I think for that one, I would have also given the same recommendation. Although if I had to give a different recommendation, I'd say focus on how the study was conducted.
Okay.
I actually had a site where it vaguely explained one of the two that I used on the presentation, but then there was also a link where it showed this is how exactly it was conducted and why it was fairly reliable or why it was not reliable.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you, Isaac.